Guess what? I did a thing. New Year's Eve, I did it. I changed the name of the podcast. When I wrote my book, Homeschool Mama Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer, back in summer 2018, I knew moms needed a deep exploration and space to consider their needs, their interests, their curiosities, their relationships, their kids. Yes, but also to their partners, their relationship to themselves, and even their relationship to education itself. And that's why I originally named my podcast Homeschool Mama Self-Care. But over the years, as I've done a deep dive on the homeschool mom life from perspectives that aren't my own, I've learned that we really all want this one thing: confidence. Confidence in our decisions, confidence in our ability to meet our kids' needs without losing ourselves, confidence in trusting our intuition over everyone else's advice, confidence in setting boundaries without guilt, and confidence in showing up as the parent and person we truly want to be without burning out or feeling like we're failing. That's what this podcast is here for, to help you reclaim that confidence, one honest conversation at a time. This year, we're taking a year-long journey together. Small 1% pivots each month that will add up to a more spacious, connected, sustainable homeschool mom life. We'll touch on less pressure, more presence, so you can nurture the nurturer without guilt and not wait for your season, as I hear so many moms refer to the season where they actually start paying attention to them and their needs. This year, I'll support you to nurture your relationships, create space for you, and help you make practical mindset shifts 1% at a time, so you can live this homeschool mom life from a place of clarity and confidence and wholeness, aligned from the inside out. Welcome to the Confident Homeschool Mom podcast, a place for moms who are ready to stop white-knuckling their days, soften the pressure, and take small, intentional steps that bring confidence not just for themselves, but for their families too. I'm Teresa Wiedrick, graduated homeschool mom turned certified life coach. When I first stepped into homeschooling, I wanted freedom. I imagined a spacious, connected, joy-filled home where my kids could learn their way, where we could weave travel and real-life learning into everything we did. But by year 3 or year 4, my beautiful dream got swallowed up in my perfectionism, people-pleasing, and old narratives that really didn't serve me, but I didn't have yet a language for. I was trying to recreate a private school at home, not noticing my own energy, not seeing the kids right in front of me, and not understanding why I felt overwhelmed so much of the time. I was driven by invisible pressures to be the perfect mom, to get it right, to not disappoint, and to prove myself. Everything shifted with one small moment, a 1% pivot, when I allowed myself to let go of my version of perfect and start paying attention to what actually worked for us. That tiny shift opened the door to more peace, more presence, more connection, more trust in myself. And little by little, our homeschool changed because I changed. I began to realize that I was the most important part of my kids' curriculum. When I learned to listen to myself, I learned to listen to them too. So then our days were filled with less conflict, more curiosity, more time following the things that really mattered to us. As a certified life coach, I help other homeschool moms make their own 1% shifts away from overwhelm and self-abandonment and toward grounded confidence, emotional safety, and a life that really feels good from the inside out. I want you to hear this. I have lived seasons where I never paused long enough to ask myself when I would eat lunch, or what I wanted to do that day, or how I wanted to feel in my own life. I didn't ask myself how I was doing. I didn't ask others to attend to my needs, not even the most important people. I didn't invite myself toward things that fed my soul. Instead, I kept asking everyone around me, "Are you okay? What do you need?" I see something that needs fixing, I must be the one to fix it. And meanwhile, inside, I was agitated, overstimulated, also overcaffeinated, underrested, wondering why I reacted so quickly to my kids, wondering why I had so much conflict with my husband. My internal soundtrack sounded like this: why won't they just do what I want them or need them to do? Why can't life just be smooth for once? Why does everything feel so hard? What I didn't understand then was that I wasn't actually failing as a mother, though I certainly felt like I was failing them. I certainly failed them in certain moments, and I certainly felt like a failure. But really what was going on was that I was simply disconnected from myself. I hear these struggles on repeat from homeschool moms, and I want to acknowledge them here. As I read a few of these challenges to you, I want you to listen for yourself. Ask yourself if this challenge is true for me. Some of us feel the truth of something in our gut. Some of us know it in our heart. And sometimes we know it's true because we keep hearing ourselves saying those things or telling other people those things. So I want you to just listen and ask yourself, which of the following statements resonates with you? I never feel like I'm doing enough. I'm constantly comparing myself to others. I'm afraid I'm letting my kids down. I don't take care of myself because others need me and I don't have time. I feel guilty when I take time for me. I can't ask for help. No one is with me to ask help from, or I'm the one others ask for help. I don't have healthy boundaries because it feels mean or selfish to have them. And others won't honor them anyway, so what's the point? I feel like I'm failing, even though I'm trying so hard. I make decisions from pressure. I don't make choices from peace. I don't let myself want anything. There's no room for me. This isn't my season. I don't trust myself, maybe because I don't really know what I want. Or if I claim a stake in my life, what's the consequence? That's why I wait for someone else to make the decisions. And the final statement that I hear is, I can't keep living like this, but I don't know how to change it. Do any of these statements resonate with you? There have been so many stories that have shaped me, stories I've shared on this podcast, and stories that I haven't, books that I've read, especially in the last 22 years. So many moments that I saw in the moment as small moments, they weren't. They were really big moments, but really like moments that shifted how I saw myself or how I understood others, or getting clear on my own intentions for my life, how I wanted to engage my little people, how I wanted to live with curiosity and purpose, and what that looked like for me, especially as I was also full-time momming. And there wasn't just one story. There have been many, many, many stories. Over the past year, I've been publishing vignettes of my memoir on Substack. And toward the end of the year, while on a trip with my husband, it hit me. The themes I keep noticing in my own life, those challenges, those shifts, the moments of clarity, they're the same ones I see over and over again in the lives of homeschool moms. Now, I can't speak for every mom. Your life and your experiences are uniquely yours, but there is a common humanity here. And in this homeschool mom space, I see it all the time in conversations on Zoom during the Aligned Homeschool Reset sessions, or in my Shed What's Not Working workshop series, or in one-on-one coaching. There is a pattern, a shared set of challenges that we share. And there is a way to move beyond them, to shift differently maybe for each of us, but to shift towards something that feels less pressured and more present. This year, I want to do something different on this podcast. I want to share the 1% pivots that I've made and the ones I've seen other women make in their lives. These are small intentional shifts that add up to more connection, more ease and confidence, less pressure, and more presence. And what we're going to do each month is explore a focus that addresses the challenges I see homeschool moms face most often. Each month, I'll offer a practical 1% pivot, a tiny step you can take that starts to shift your experience, that will shift your days. It will feel meaningful in your homeschool mom life. They will be 1% shifts. They won't be big. They're small. They're doable. And over time, they add up. And they add up to move you, because that's what pivots do. They move you to feel more aligned and calm and confident. And that'll affect you and your family. So yesterday, as I was preparing for our book club inside the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective this Friday, I decided to re-listen to the entire audiobook of James Clear's Atomic Habits, all in one go. I don't know that I've ever listened to an entire book in one sitting. By the way, I wasn't sitting. But anyways, I digress. I listened to the entire thing again. It was amazing again. His book is just so clear. A joke I'm sure he's really over. But it's so true. It's so clear. The thing that stayed with me most wasn't actually about productivity or optimization. It was actually his explanation of the power of the 1% shift. He calls it a shift. I call it a pivot. I'll get to that. I'll get to why I think that that's really important. That idea that you don't change your life by doing something drastic, but by making the tiniest intentional shift and repeating it. That felt so familiar to me because for years I've been telling women the same thing in different words. If you want quiet time, don't aim for an evening away. Just try 15 minutes. Just 15. And I say that because I've lived this story too. When my kids were littler, I couldn't just leave the house. I didn't live near family. In fact, oftentimes we were traveling in those first 7 years of our homeschool life. So I didn't always know who were my neighbors either. How do you find time for yourself when you're always needed anyway? The kids were too young to be left alone at that point. My husband was working a full-time and a half job, somewhere around the 80-hour-a-week job. I clocked him at about year 4, year 5. I actually clocked him, and it was minimum 80 hours a week. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for me just to leave. And so the question became, how do you find time for yourself when you're always needed? For me, it was 15 minutes after lunch, in my bedroom, in the white chair in the corner, with a box of cookies hidden under my chair, tapping away on my iPad when iPads came into my homeschool story. Sometimes I was writing, sometimes I was pinning ideas on Pinterest, just enough to feel like me again. And once I fell in love with that 15 minutes, I wanted more. So I made space, little by little. That 15 minutes was a 1% shift. James Clear talks about that so beautifully, how one small shift can compound over time. He uses the metaphor of an ice cube. You can raise the temperature from 25 degrees to 31 degrees, and nothing appears to change. But at 32 degrees, everything changes. The ice melts. And we Canadians and Americans from the Midwest know this well. 1 degree can change everything. Snow melts, roads clear, the season begins to turn. Also the drop in degrees. We know that one too. That's what I mean when I'm talking about a 1% shift or a 1% pivot. I call it a pivot intentionally. That word still carries weight for me, especially after 2020. Not because pivots were easy or beautiful. It had significant challenges for all of us differently, but all of us. Mine involved continuing homeschooling 3 of our kids, Our oldest just graduated and went across the country to college. My husband was the chief of staff at the time at the local hospital. He worked in emerge and he did anesthesia in the OR. I know you all had unique challenges during that time. We all have wild stories. But because it required us to adapt, all of us, to move differently, to find meaning and connection in ways we hadn't planned, each of us was required to pivot. And this year, I am not going to teach habits for the sake of habits. I'm not going to turn this podcast into a year-long book study of atomic habits, although that would be fun, but that's not the goal. What I want to do is address the habitual thoughts that are shaping your homeschool life. Because when we shift how we think, even by 1%, it changes how we show up in our homes, in our relationships, with our kids, with our partners, and even our relationship with ourselves. And I might add, even to the relationship we have with education itself. Many mornings, right after breakfast in our homeschool years, we read this Lao Tzu quote often in our home. I kept it in a read-aloud book in a basket beside the sofa. It is this: watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. Our thoughts matter. They shape our behavior and so much of what we do. Our reactions, our behavioral patterns, they're driven by an attempt to solve a problem. And when we begin to gently question the thoughts underneath the pressure, when we make a 1% pivot in how we interpret our days and our relationships and our life, the shift can be profound. That's what this year of the 1% pivot will be all about. And want to know the most exciting part of it? Unquestionably, it supports you in releasing the pressure on your expectations in your homeschool, in how you do relationships, in how you do life. Less pressure, more presence. So here's what I want to invite you to do with all of this. Because I don't want this to be just another episode you nod along to and then forget by the end of, the week or maybe tomorrow. That is not the point of this podcast season. That is pressure dressed up as growth. Instead, I want you to pick one 1% pivot, one small shift, one place where you feel a little tight, a little tender, and ask yourself, what's the smallest thing I could do differently? One pivot a month will be enough. You might want to write it down somewhere simple, like a journal or maybe the notes in your phone, a sticky note on the fridge. I've got sticky notes all over my study. The goal is just to notice what changed, what felt lighter, what surprised you, and I also want to remind you, you're doing this with me. And you're doing this with a whole bunch of other homeschool moms. But if you want a place to talk about all of this, about what's working, what's hard, what you're noticing as you make these pivots, you're invited to the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective. You can join me on Patreon as a free member, and we'll have regular conversations over there once a week. Over the coming weeks and months on the podcast, we're going to go deeper into each of these themes one at a time. We'll unpack them through real-life stories, gentle mindset shifts, practical tools again, and conversations that help you move from pressure to presence. Throughout the year, I'll also be inviting you to the Shed What's Not Working workshops all year long, also the Reimagine Your Homeschool masterclasses. And if you've been around for a while, you already know we'll be doing the 12-day self-care challenge again later this year if you didn't catch it last December. This year is all about walking with intention, making small pivots, and building a homeschool mom life that feels more like yours. 1 month, one conversation, 1% shift at a time. So as we wrap up today, I want to bring us back to the heart of this year and this season of the podcast. It's about small, intentional pivots each month, not giant overhauls, just a 1% pivot from pressure to presence, so you can create real, sustainable change. By the way, that is how confidence grows. That's how your homeschool begins to feel more calm and connected and more aligned with who you actually are. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to follow or subscribe to the Confident Homeschool Mom podcast so you don't miss the upcoming episodes. And share it with a friend who might value this encouragement too. If you haven't already shared your thoughts about the Confident Homeschool Mom podcast, I would love to hear from you on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to this podcast. I want to share one simple free way to stay connected to the work of the 1% pivot. Because so many of the 1% pivots that changed my life didn't come from doing something. It actually came from seeing things differently. And one of the ways that I saw things differently was through books. Over the years, books of varying sorts, varying authors' stories and experiences and frameworks were some of the most meaningful 1% moments of my life. I share many of them here on the podcast. It could be just a single idea or a story that names something that I couldn't quite articulate yet. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Have you had that experience? Well, I created the Homeschool Mom Book Club newsletter. It's totally free, and it's where I share the books that have gently but profoundly shifted how I think about homeschooling and motherhood, self-trust, rest, boundaries and relationships, being married, and being a woman inside this life. You'll find the link to join the book club newsletter in the show notes, or if you're over on socials, you can always just say, hey, I would love that Homeschool Mama Book Club newsletter. Actually, if you just type Book Club newsletter, you'll find it in your DMs. It's a simple way to keep walking this year with me. As we head into this new podcast year, I want to leave you with this reminder. One, you'll hear often around here. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to carry all the things and do all the things. You are allowed to show up fully for yourself and for your kids. One small shift, one 1% pivot from pressure to presence. I'm really glad you're here. If you're ready to go deeper than the book club newsletter, you're always welcome to untangle your overwhelm, build a homeschool life that actually fits you. You're invited to book your free aligned homeschool reset session. I would be delighted to meet you. You'll find the link waiting for you in the show notes or on the first page to my website, capturingthecharmedlife.com. Until next time, take care of yourself, nurture the nurturer, and keep leading your homeschool life aligned from the inside out. You got this, girlfriend.